Welcome to episode 51 of the Rise Fitness and Nutrition podcast. I am your host, Carlo. We are reaching the 1 year anniversary for my podcast, and today I would like to talk to you of a single thing you can use to survive the holidays and to still have a balance in your diet with the enjoyment of the season. It's called Right Line Rules. Happy listening. It's holiday season, and what happens during holiday season? Well, most of us, if not everybody, celebrates with family and loved ones. But, and there's a huge but here, what happens when you go back and visit your family during holiday season? Tons of food. And of course, you have been like super regular in your diet and your workout throughout the year, and then December comes and you have Thanksgiving and you have Christmas if you celebrate Christmas or any kind of holiday, and you have New Year's Eve, and all of a sudden your diet completely messes up, say from mid-November all the way to the beginning of January, which is not negative per se because you are using food as a way to enjoy time and share experiences with your loved one and with your families. But on the other hand, if you have been struggling a lot to keep a regular diet and found your balance, these, say, 4 to 6 weeks might completely ruin everything you have been working on and then force you to start from zero again after this season. Now, let me be clear here. Enjoy time with your family and loved ones and have food that you normally would not have during the year and exceed in quantity from time to time is not bad. And if you have been listening to my podcast, you heard me saying things like this over and over. Even if you have a very clear progress path and a very clear consistency, tracking your calories, your nutrients, and when you work out, when you take some breaks, when you go out with your friends, if you eat more than you are quote unquote supposed to eat, it is not going to ruin your progress because the day after you go back to your regular diet. The thing is that this becomes complicated when you're having a little bit more from time to time becomes having a lot more for 4 to 6 weeks because you have Thanksgiving if you celebrate Thanksgiving, you have Christmas if you celebrate Christmas, you have New Year's Eve, you have the occasion to meet with your family, or the relatives, the loved ones, everybody. So usually there's a lot more food than you usually have. And it's not just a single lunch or dinner. Usually it's a streak of a few days. And I'm saying this because I am in the very same situation right here, right now. You know that I live in Japan and I flew back to Italy a couple of days ago. And since I arrived, I had a lot more food that I'm used to have and a lot more unbalanced macronutrients compared to my usual diet. But it's not bad because the food I have, it's something that I cannot have in Japan. Plus, I'm sharing this time with my family, which is very unlikely for me to happen regularly. So during these days, I'm having a little bit of an attitude that says, whatever, dude, enjoy this time. And as I said, this is not a bad thing. And I do encourage you to enjoy the time with your family at your best. But on the other hand, I have been working hard throughout the year to keep a balance in my diet and in my workout. And since I came here, I didn't walk much, which on the other hand, in Tokyo, I try to stay around 10,000 steps a day. Here in my hometown, I am reaching 3,000 steps a day if I'm lucky. First, I am not working out properly, so I don't go to the gym here because I stay in Italy a couple of weeks a year and there's no gym that has, say, short membership or daily passes that are worth it. And I am eating a lot more food than I'm used to. Specifically, I'm having a lot more carbs and a lot more fats than I'm used to compared to my regular diet in Tokyo. So for me, it is a struggle to keep a sort of balance in my daily nutrients. So how to make this work to avoid stepping back and ruining the progress that I have been having all the way here? Now, in my situation, it is a little shorter than might be in other cases because I'm staying here in Japan just for a couple of weeks. But on top of that, I will have to go back to Japan and spend around 14 days in quarantine. So sure, I will go back to have my regular diet once I fly back to Tokyo, but I will not be able to work out for a total of 4 to 6 weeks. And it doesn't necessarily mean that I won't do anything at all in these 6 weeks, but I will be having a much more different type of workout and training regime compared to having a gym available 24/7, which I usually have. So how can you make this work? How can you have the food that you enjoy and maybe take a break from working out, but still have a balance to avoid completely going off rail with whatever you were doing before the holidays? There has to be a solution, right? There has to be a strategy. There has to be a secret, a key, something to help you stay somehow on track. Even though I understand that going off calories is perfectly normal in this season specifically because of all the reasons that I said so far. So how can you do to stay somehow balanced? There's a psychological thing called bright lines. And this is what I find very useful for this type of situations like holidays and family gatherings, but that you can also apply to your daily life once you go back to the usual routine. And then you have extras like co-workers dinners, friends dinners, drinks, and what's not. So what am I talking about? The bright line rules are a psychology strategy that I read about from James Clear. He writes about habits, decision making, and continuous improvement. And I find that the way that he describes this idea can be really beneficial, especially when we're talking about these type of situations where you need some help to stay on track, no matter what. Besides, you can find the full article that I'm referring here on the website jamesclear.com/bright-lines. And that's super useful. So what is a bright line rule? It's a clearly defined rule or a standard. It's a rule that has a clear interpretation and very little wiggle room. And it establishes a bright line for what the rule is saying and what it's not saying. And in this, I find there is some similarity with the SMART goals. So let's see a little bit more what I mean here. How many of us say that they want to eat healthier? And this is very common. I say that in the past as well. And I think you might have heard this a lot from your friends, or you simply might have thought about it yourself. And you might find yourself in a situation to say, okay, for Monday, I'm gonna eat healthier. But then, even when I hear these type of statements from my clients, or when they ask me, how can I eat healthier, Carlo? My answer to them is another question. And it is, can you define what eating healthier means to you? Are you gonna have more veggies? If so, define what's more. Are you gonna have less cakes? Okay, define. What do you mean by less cakes? Maybe, if not a cake every meal, a cake for dinner only or for lunch only, not every day, every 1 or 2 days. I need a definition. And this is where it becomes clear that, sure, it's easy to make promises to ourselves like this. Oh, I'm gonna eat healthier. But these promises do not create bright lines because these statements are fuzzy statements and they're hard to measure. And if we can measure the things we want to improve, now that's the moment when we start making progress. That's why I'm saying the bright lines are very similar to SMART goals. You need a goal that has to be measurable to be able to track if you're making progress or not. Where's the line here? When you decide that you have to measure and track something and when you don't need to do that? The answer is simple. If something matters to you, then you might want to track it. If improving any kind of aspect in your life, say nutrition, sleep quality, consistency while training is important to you, then you found something that needs a bright line or a rule for you to stick to it and be sure that you can measure and track your progress. Considering the statement I said before, I want to eat healthier, how can you make this into a bright line, into a rule? You have to give a definition to it. So instead of say, I want to eat healthier, you can say something similar to, I want to eat at least 2 types of vegetables per day. or I want to eat at least XYZ grams of protein per day. Now that's a rule, and that's something you can track. And this is not vague, because vague promises will never lead to results, but clear promises and clear goals do lead to results. Now, rules like this are very useful to build new behaviors, but you can use this type of rules in situations where you had to break bad habits or eliminate old behaviors, or trying to find a guideline in moments where there's a lot of extras. For example, when you visit your family for holidays and it becomes a little difficult to control yourself and try to find a way to manage all these extras. And to help you understand, let me share with you the kind of bright lines and rules that I have set for myself for these holidays. Now I know that walking and working out will be an issue, but something I can control is the portions of food that I eat with my family, specifically the amount of cakes and desserts, because here in Italy, during Christmas season, we have so many desserts, so many options that it becomes difficult to control. So in the past, I never put any kind of specific limit to the amount of cakes and desserts that I have, because they're delicious, because I never had them throughout the year, which is fine. But this year, I had decided to limit myself to one single slice of dessert per meal, eventually. So this is a rule that says every meal, I'm gonna have only one slice of cake, which might not seem like something big to you, might seem like, yeah, well, whatever. But when you set a rule for yourself and you choose it yourself, you're bound to respect that, because it's not something that someone else forces you to do, but is something that you choose. Another example of a rule could be, okay, I'm only gonna drink 1 glass or 2 glasses of wine per meal with my family. And again, this might not seem like much, but if you set the rule yourself and you respect the rule, that will give you a boost in your willpower, and it gives you a boost in your confidence. And also, when you set clear rules from the beginning, it becomes easier for you to make choices because you already have a guideline. So every time you are faced with something that requires you to make a decision, you already know what to do. For example, in my case, when I am offered another slice of cake, I simply say, no, thank you, I'm okay. Because I set a rule for myself that says no. And even if I am tempted, even if I would like to have more, I have a rule and I set it myself, and I'm going to respect that. Now, this doesn't mean that I'm going to cancel all the enjoyment. I'm going to take away all the joy and the things that I have here that I cannot have in Japan. I'm just saying that I want to put some boundaries, because it's true. It's not a problem if you enjoy a few extra days, because it's a really special and extraordinary occasion. But on the other hand, it's easier if you have a set of rules and some boundaries to move in, because you don't have to overthink about it. And you can work having less guilt, because, oh my God, I ate too much cake, I had too much wine, I had too much calories, what's not? I know that this is extraordinary, and I know that I have a set of rules for me to follow that I chose myself, and it also makes it easier psychologically, because having these guidelines makes every single choice less tiring. You see what I'm doing here? And you can make your own rules and your own decisions. The point here is that you make them yourself. So make them very clear and stick to them, because I am not telling you that you only had to have one slice of cake or only one glass of wine. I'm just telling you that you had to find a way to decide for yourself whichever applies to your own very specific case. That it can be, for example, something simple as having one single slice of bread per meal, or something like that. It doesn't have to be dramatic, but it has to set yourself a rule, because the more you respect that, the more it's easier for you to have the consistency and the confidence to know that you can apply changes when you really set yourself into it. And that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening all the way here. As you can see, bright line rules are very useful in the holiday season, but they can be very useful in your daily life. You know what else could be very useful? If you like my podcast, please leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcast and share this on your Instagram channel and to your friends, tagging me along. That will be awesome.